Hi everyone, hello beautiful souls, and welcome to my next episode of MV Inspire. This episode is number 4, and today I'm going to be talking to you about communication because I believe that communication is the key. And where shall we begin? Communication is a skill. Everybody can learn it and everybody can improve it. We come to this world and we learn to communicate the basics from our parents, our siblings, from everyone that we meet. But at some point we just reach the point where you want to know more, you learn more. After school, when you start developing yourself and when you start developing your own sort of communicational skills. And that's why I say everybody can learn it and improve it as they go along, but not many people really put that effort and time into actually working on it, so they stay within the limited amount of the words within their vocabulary, and that's fine as long as it suits them. But if you want to really be able to communicate confidently, politely, and say the right words when it's appropriate, and say sorry when it's time to say sorry, that has to be part of it, then I would encourage you to look into it and work on yourself and improve your vocabulary as you go along. And I will give you a few tips how you can do that. Reading, definitely reading. I have to say I'm not English, so for me, after 12 years living in the UK, I found it extremely helpful to actually be reading out loud. Now, I had teachers in the past, so I know roughly what the accent and pronunciation should be, but I do like my accent and I'm proud of it that I'm Czech. But either way, I do read the words, and I've started reading actually 3 times a week in the morning, a magazine, psychological magazine, because I just love psychology, and it helps me to get new words into my head, into my brain. And you know what, even if you read it and then you put it away, the brain remembers, and then when a situation arises, it is still there, so you know that you've got that word to use. And that's what I mean by learning more. There is always a way how you can learn more, and reading, I believe, out loud is one of the best ways how you can really expand that vocabulary. And then, without even noticing it, you will know that actually you did a good thing, because that word just pops into your head and you will say it, and that is just beautiful feeling. So I know when I meet up with my mentor, I have to thank him. He always comments on my English being better and better, and you know what, it's not perfect and it may never be, that's fine, but as long as I'm working on it, then I can be proud of myself. And I have to say, I'm not afraid of having a conversation with anyone, and no matter how difficult, how challenging, or how easy it may be, whether it's someone who I know or whether it's someone who I don't know. It's nice to feel that confidence within myself that yes, I am able to communicate what I think through my mouth and share it with others. Okay? So that's one tip. Second one, I would say, I don't encourage actually people to watch too much news or listen too much to the radio, because let's say majority of the time it is negative. It's all the catastrophes that are happening in the world and all the advertising that's purely brainwashing, if you are honest. And so within limited time per day or even per week, I do encourage actually for you to listen to the radio, let's say for an hour. That's more than enough, let's say in 3 days or so. And then maybe twice a week I would even watch an hour of news, but purely focus on the words that the people are saying rather than the content, because it really, you'd be very surprised how much it affects your brain. But that's probably for another episode, because I could go on how we believe in what we see and how the words really go into our minds, and how we actually afterwards are having discussions with others depending on what we watch and how often we watch it. And that's what keeps us really in that bubble of being under control, and that's how advertising works. So one day I'm gonna use it, but anyway, I'll leave that to you, okay, to decide. But yes, when it comes to communication, It's good to listen to proper English, which BBC I would say is the best one. They pronounce it really properly, they speak really politely, nicely, and that's where you can get some information about words and communicate a bit better when you get that information in. So next one, I would say writing. Just write stuff every day or every other day about your day, because if you follow these two, if you read out loud or read, and if you watch and listen, then when you write, you'd be very surprised how much the way you write will change as time goes along. So definitely try that, and I mean, unless you try it, you won't know. But I've tried it, I know it works, and it has worked for me, so for sure it can work for you. Okay, now the second one, when it comes to communication, I'm gonna talk about misunderstandings and arguments, because misunderstandings and arguments are purely lack of communication. If we are able to have a discussion and communicate with anyone about any topic, then there is no space or time for arguing. And misunderstandings is not being able to express properly what we think, how we feel, and that causes the misunderstanding, which can sort of grow up into argument. And yeah, I just believe that there is no space for arguments at all. Like, if it can happen, of course it will happen, it depends how we live, how we feel and everything else. But when it comes to communicating, when there is a tense situation, when there is a sort of tension between two people or even a group, you know, if people know that they can communicate clearly and find solutions or compromises, or even at the end of it, you know, agree that they disagree, that's absolutely fine. But it's about having that vocabulary, having those right words to use, and be able to communicate what really is on your mind. And that really helps you to avoid arguments and misunderstandings. So I definitely encourage everyone to work on their communicational skills, but that's why I'm talking to you now. Now, I did give you some tips how you can improve your communicational skills, but I'm also gonna touch base on one thing is what we have been taught and what we can hear around us whilst we are young and whilst we grow up. And the second thing is what else we can actually learn and how we can develop, and maybe potentially how we can change our communicational skills. Now, the reason, I'll tell you a little bit of my story. When I was young, obviously I was the cool girl, I had black hair, I was wearing black clothes. That was actually me sort of being very insecure and building up my confidence by wearing black color. But also part of it was quite strong language, let's say. You know, I won't lie, I wasn't an angel, and that's fine because I dealt with it. What was, I'm here right now completely in peace with myself. But what I want to say is I didn't care much about how I was communicating, how I was speaking, you know. Rude words were kind of part of just everyday language, really. And you know, it was okay because I was, let's say, also part of those groups that it was okay for everyone. And I'm sure that, you know, I'm not only talking about myself, because I know there are many people that have these experiences, and you know what, it's part of the growing process, it's part of our development. That's why I say everybody is actually working on their self-development without them even noticing it, knowing it and recognizing it, and that's fine. But what I want to say, for me, the transformation happened when I came to the UK, and I found it extremely frustrating and extremely upsetting that people did not get what I meant, but I was not able to express myself. I was not able to communicate. I was not able to say the words that would reflect on my thoughts. And so it was really challenging. I'll tell you, the first 2 years were really, really challenging for me to stay in this country, not being able to understand and not being able to communicate. And that's where I kind of thought, oh, I've got to give up, I've got to go home, I can't cope with it. You know, my personality and who I was at the time were like fighting with each other, and I thought like, oh, I can't do this anymore. But I am a dedicated person. I like learning, I like developing, and I went for it. So what I did, I got teachers, one-to-one, because I always prefer when I have someone to talk to and when they have all the time in the world for me. And it really helped because I wasn't afraid to actually ask any questions, and I knew that they were going to give me answers. Just me, no other students, no other accent, just the right accent that I really wanted to pick up. Well, suddenly it probably didn't happen, but hey ho. And it really helped, because as time went, as I was learning more and more, I actually became quite confident in talking, and I slowed down, rather than pushing and trying to force it and get people to understand me when I couldn't really express myself properly. The more words I got into my head, the more words that I put into my vocabulary, the more words I learned and sentences, and the more I was becoming more confident in communicating and saying it out loud, the better things became. And I slowed down, and as thoughts came to my mind, then I was able to actually say them out loud confidently. And do you know what? That's an amazing feeling. However, the biggest transformation actually happened when it comes to my communication and dropping the rude language completely. I actually correct people not to swear, because I just believe there is no need for it. I just think it's poor vocabulary if anyone has to use the rude words in the sentence. And yes, when I got into business and when I was meeting up with business people and professionals, and I felt like I really want to be able to actually talk to them properly, talk to them on a professional level, be able to express exactly what I mean and how I mean it without being sort of misunderstood or using wrong words and just not caring much. So that's when I really pushed myself. That's when I read a lot. That's when I listened to many TEDx talks. I love TEDx talks. And you know what? It made a massive, massive difference. And then the next basically transformation happened in my life was when I really found myself. And that was probably 3-4 years ago. I mean, I was always myself. But when you really find yourself and you know who you are, and that comes from you in a spoken word, then that is a massive communicational skill too. When you're not afraid to admit that you're wrong, when you're not afraid to actually bring up conversations that are really difficult and might be quite tense, when you're not able to speak to anyone about anything, about their experience, about your experience, about arguments you had in the past, about beautiful things that you experienced in the past, but with a beautiful flow of the right words that you really have in your mind, and you can do that. That's just beautiful. And that was the biggest transformation in my life, when I actually thought, yeah, I can do that. I learned to communicate. I know I can communicate clearly. I know there is a lot of space for an improvement, and trust me, there is always something to improve, and that's fine, because we are learning our whole life. And you know what? As long as we are learning, that's good, because we know we are alive, okay? So I would say, yeah, communication is a big thing. Yeah, it raises up your confidence. It boosts your self-esteem. It makes you feel proud of yourself. It makes you aware that it is doable. It makes you open up to people, and you know what? When you do that, people open up to you too, and they know they can. It builds up trust. It builds up clear communication between anyone. And I would like to talk about the main benefits of it, which is the last point I want to talk about, because when you do learn to communicate properly, one of the examples is family. Imagine that there were issues in the family, and it was really hard to touch base on it, bring it to those that are related to the situation, to their attention, and you just wouldn't know how. Well, the thing is, if we don't know how to do it, we have to learn how to do it. And I just believe you always have to learn. If you really want to become good at something, then you can either give up, or you can just ponder around and it's okay, or you can learn and push yourself to actually become good at it. Everything else comes together. But if you don't want to learn more, if you don't want to improve, then you'll always stay where you are. So basically, yes, families, imagine you were confident, you had loads of words in your mind and in your vocabulary that you could use, and you were able to actually put the sentence together very carefully and think before you speak, and you use the right words. How you actually brought up that conversation up with your siblings, with your parents, with your uncles, grandmas, whoever it may be that you might be having issues with. Or you might be thinking, well, I wished we could really talk about it. Well, sometimes people need to see an example, and if you can be that example, that is amazing, because that will make you feel, I can do it, and there is always a way, and there is always a way. There is always a solution, there is always a compromise, or there is always, we don't agree, and that's fine. You think that, I think that, fine. What do we do about it? Something, nothing? Well, at least the conversation happened. And you don't know when that conversation can happen again. Because once you open up the door, then you can open it even wider and wider, until you actually allow both parts to have a clear, calm communication, discussion about it. So that's what I would say. And imagine at work, the colleague really, let's say, made you angry, or the boss did something that you don't agree with. Well, by learning to communicate properly, by having the right words to use, imagine that you are confident enough to go face your boss or your colleague and say, listen, I feel what happened the other day wasn't fair. Can we just chat about it? Or with the boss, let's say, you'd be able to go and tell them, the decision you made, I don't completely agree with it. There is another part of the story. Can we have a discussion about it? Because it changed how I feel at work from that moment. And you know what? It's in benefit of the boss and any employer, I would say. That's their job, partly, to care about their employees, and also in the benefit of the employee to have a discussion, to really find that peace and decide what they're going to do next, And yes, there will be moments where it'll be easier or it will be harder, but again, if you are the one who decides to work on your communicational skills, then I encourage you to do that right now. Just grab a I don't know, a book, and read 1 page a day out loud. You will see how much of a difference it will make. And the change that will happen, that improvement within your communicational skill, you will be very surprised. You will be very, very surprised. So, and actually, I haven't mentioned relationships, and I think they're quite important. And on that subject, I have to say, the clients that I was working with, we worked on communicating a lot, and it was from the basics, just simply how you feel today, how you feel this morning, how you feel in the evening. And that comes down to caring. And when I was expressing what love is caring, love is sharing, love is understanding, love is communicating, love is all and more. And you know what? It is. But communication is the key, especially if you live with someone, and if you're planning to spend the rest of your life with them. Learn to communicate, because if you don't communicate, then there may be situations where you think, I wish I'd said something. Maybe we wouldn't have to break up. Or lost marriages, divorces. Like, it's a lack of communicating enough. Because it is important to communicate about issues. It is important to communicate about problems, about feelings, not only towards each other, but also if it's related to work. I feel that way, we all need to be heard. We all also need to be able to express ourselves, and having the skill of communicating and listening is a beautiful skill to have. I really encourage everyone to work on it, because once you do, many families, many relationships and marriages can be saved. But if we don't communicate, then guess what? It will just fall apart. And that is the truth. So I think there are many benefits in learning the communicational skill. And it made a massive difference in my life. Because I was always pushing forward, saying things, interacting and being the one who wanted to be heard. But what was I saying was not always appropriate. Now I do think about what I'm saying, and if you get yourself into that position that you know what you're saying, you're capable of listening, you're capable of communicating and having discussions about anything and everything, you really have a powerful tool in your hand, basically. And all you need is to learn a few more words on a weekly basis and be able to use them and think before you speak. So that takes me to the tip number 1, which I'm gonna say it's not new. Obviously, you've heard it a few times throughout this talk, and it is think before you speak. Don't rush into answering, don't rush into interacting, don't rush into saying something, just filling in the gap of silence. Silence is good. It gives space to breathe. It gives space to think before we can speak. Think before you speak. Now, the second one I'm gonna say is learn to listen. I've done my learn to listen post as well, so I'll add a link below so that you can watch that one too. Listening is a very, very good skill to have. You will learn so much about people, what they really say, how they say it, and what they really mean by it. And as much as you learn about others, you're learning yourself. And there's nothing better than learning more. That's how I see it. So listen. Also, listen carefully, because sometimes people need help, but they don't know how to ask for it. And you never know when you may be able to save somebody's life, save somebody's marriage, save somebody's, job, maybe, relationship, anything. Just learn to listen. It's beautiful when you do that, okay? And the last one I'm gonna say is going to be learn. Learn as much as you can. Learn new words. Don't stay within the known and say me, and you'll always have the same discussions if you don't learn new things, if you don't read new words, if you don't go on to a new adventure, if you don't go into a place that you don't know. So I would say learn the skill of communication. That will get you much further than staying the same. And prepare yourself for difficult conversations, because life is filled with them. As much as there will be beautiful times and easy, yes, there will be those times where you will have to be the one stepping up and saying, look, it's not working, we have to talk, let's talk. Go and do that. Because when you are able to listen and communicate, then neither of the discussions that you're ever gonna have will be a problem. And you know what? It's all experience that we are creating. Good, bad, happy, sad, challenging, easy, rewarding, anything. It's all experiences. So I really encourage everyone to work on themselves, learn to communicate, learn to listen, and think before you speak. Okay? Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I will add my link to the Learn to Listen post as well, so that you can watch that one. And give me thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave me some comments if you're struggling to communicate, because I believe that in relationships, especially families or work, it's not easy. And you know what? That's why I created TTS. If you're struggling, if you don't know where to start, I can help you with that. I can really push you to get on the track of learning and being really good at it. And it will take some time, it needs baby steps, but you know what? You can do it. I did it, and so you can too. Okay? Thank you so much for watching, and follow my links, subscribe to my YouTube channel, okay? And I will be in touch next week with the next video. Take care for now, and enjoy the day wherever you are, whatever you do, and remember, communication is the key. Bye.